You have Servant of Africa
Yeah.
on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Tell me how that came about. The humble title of a servant for Africa. Tell me more about that.
So, um,
Well, hello, StemToRoots. This is Mike Demba. This is where we plan on talking our way into a plan. This morning, this very early morning for me, I have my man, my boy, Ousman Touray. Okay, today, this episode right here, this is not even about planning on talking because this man has actually done something. This man has gone beyond the talking phase. All right, Ousmani, tell my people who you are, what you do, where you're from, anything you can share right now, because the rest I will uncover as we go.
okay, yeah, thanks very much. And yeah, it's a pleasure to talk to you and everyone. So, I am based in London. I live here with my wife and our 5-year-old son. My
Yes.
background is engineering, project management, and I found myself working in different continents: Europe, Africa, the Middle East, across various industries like highways, I mean, various sectors: highways, railways, bridges, and now telecoms infrastructure.
Hmm.
I have other passions that I'm working on as well, but I guess we'll
Yes.
get into that
We will.
further
We
down.
will. Osmani, you're a man of the world. That's why I wanted you here. All right. Just from the intro, you've already mentioned all the places that you've worked. Okay. Let's dig in a little bit. I want my people to get to know you more because your background will say a lot. So, you're based in London. You were born in the UK. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, true.
Of Gambian parents, so you're deeply rooted in West Africa. You
Hmm.
were born in the UK, and for anybody that knows you, they know how involved you are when it comes to our continent.
Yeah.
How did that come about? By that I mean, for somebody born in the UK, you know, how is Africa this important to you?
Good question. I think
Hmm.
the highlight for me was when I got to live in Gambia, and during that time, I was also lucky to travel through involvement in like youth work, like the Red Cross Society
Hmm.
and stuff.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I was able to travel to like from Ghana, Ivory Coast, Conakry, Cameroon, Kenya, all the way over to like Kenya, and this was all like for activities, talking to other youths in Africa about development. Being involved in those youth activities kept me very busy, so I guess
Hmm.
it helped me stay away from trouble, the trouble that other people
That
get
early
into.
on.
And
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
I was not in school, I'd be in some meeting or some seminar over the weekend or after work. Uh, the the blessing of being able to live in Gambia was also plays a part, because if you are not born in Gambia and you never lived
Yes.
there before,
Yes.
then you're disconnected. And there are ways that this can be fixed, maybe visiting frequently, keeping in touch with family, but
Yeah.
being able to live there is a different experience that is so valuable. You wouldn't know until when you grow up, and then you get to appreciate what you've learned, like languages,
Yes.
culture, tradition,
Yes.
religions, different behaviors, different understandings, beliefs. So yeah,
And what time of your life was that?
I would
When
say
you
childhood. I'd say from around 10 to the end of high school. So that
Yes.
was a peak period where you're still young, and
Yes.
yeah,
All of that can be ingrained in you. And then after high school, you ended up going back to the UK,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and then hence becoming a trained engineer in the UK. And now, after all those years in Africa, back to the UK as an adult, got trained there, got educated there, and now you're connecting to the rest of the world as far as what you do, but still have Africa. Listen, this man, and this is me talking to my people, literally has where in LinkedIn we all have our senior technical director, manager of this, director of that. You have servant of Africa
Yeah.
on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Tell me how that came about. The humble title of a servant for Africa. Tell me more about that.
So, I guess I see LinkedIn as a tool that's very useful for your branding, your personal branding. And I guess along the way, I learned that branding helps with your career progression as well. And I found many opportunities on LinkedIn. And it was from knowing how to do your CV, LinkedIn, because
Yes.
now if you
Yes.
any application, anything, the first thing they do is check your LinkedIn.
Check your LinkedIn.
If it's they check your Instagram maybe, but
Yeah.
LinkedIn is the first
Yes.
point if you're
Right.
looking for a job. So
Mm-hmm.
I had those, head of the project manager at this and that, but it's not what I want to do, or it doesn't really describe my purpose. So instead of the long-winded this, head of this, bit of this, up and down, this was like one day early in the morning, and I was like, Servant of Africa. Oh, well, perfect. Boom.
Came
And
to you.
that's it.
There's a lot of meaning in that. The first day I saw that, you know, it got me curious. And I didn't ask you, I didn't come to you because I've been hunting for you. And now that I have you here, servant of Africa, what does that mean? And by that, what are you doing for Africa today? Or not doing, we'll get to that. How do you think about Africa as you sit here today?
So the the people have the continent's been through a lot, still is going
Mhm,
through a lot, and
mhm,
we
mhm.
need more people who shift their focus to fixing things instead of complaining about what's not working. And
Ooh.
the saying, be the change you want to see. And it is frustrating, it is challenging, but at least if everyone does one thing, it's millions of people, one plus one plus one, a million times, would make a big difference. So there are many different challenges, many different sectors, agriculture. There's so many different sectors that could feed or, build the whole continent. But the thing is, you need to focus on what you can do as a
Mhm.
person, what you can do with your skill set, and
Individuals, yeah.
individuals,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
make a difference one step at a time.
Mm.
And
Mm.
being a servant means your purpose is connected to making it better than it is now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Being a servant means like right now, whatever you gotta do, you're doing it, to pay it forward.
Yeah.
It might not be something that you'll benefit from today, but you do your part and let somebody benefit in the future, whether it's your kids or their kids. You see, this is why I wanted you here. Fascinating already. We jumped into it. Let's come back again. We want to talk about you, Usman. Trained engineer. And what you do is, all the stuff that you've mentioned as far as what you do, the projects you manage, the projects you're involved in. These are things that Africa is yearning for. Africa
Hmm.
is hungry for, right? Bridges, roads, just high infrastructure things that your background is on. You've visited the continent. You've been traveling the continent since you were a young youth. Running around as a Red Cross member, right? Up till now, you. I think if anybody looks at your passport right now, this year you've been back and forth between the UK and all over Africa. Like, you should be looking for your 10th passport
They
by
they
now.
struggle to find space for stamps. Trust me.
What have you seen in Africa in all the travel? As far as just what you do, forget everything else, just what you do as an engineer. How many times do you travel the roads and just get so hungry for what can be done?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much a similar model in each country. You have, on your way from the airport, you have a long journey, some good roads, some bad. In some cases, it's excellent roads all the way through, but you drive past the areas where the less fortunate people live. And as you go further down, you get into an area that's more organized, more developed. That's where the 1% live, the people who, well off, expats, top directors. And it's the same thing. So you have the 1% area, and then you have the 99% where life is life and people are struggling to make ends meet, crazy traffic to get to
Right,
work, and
right.
street vendors, chaos. You know, it's not balanced. So that's the first thing you see. And the beauty of being able to work there and work with other African people is you empower them to become more senior and progress, and
Mm,
that helps them and their families. But the common challenge we have is you have even within the family setting, there's
yes, yes.
1% successful and 99 who aren't. So it's
Ooh,
the
you're
same thing.
bringing it down to the family
Yeah,
level.
it's the
So
same
even with
thing.
our family settings, you see that just 1%, 1% is successful out of so many.
Yeah. And then that one person you're helping progress is balancing taking care of himself or herself and their immediate family, and being, the 99% are there as well. Like, Michael, you're successful. I need this. I need this. Genuine
Mm,
challenges.
yes, yes.
Genuine. And you have to help them.
And this is what you see. So every time you travel the continent, you see this huge gap. You see this difference between the 99% and 1%. And in Africa, more than any place, I mean, here, even here in the US, in the UK, you see that
Yeah, yeah,
disparity.
yeah, yeah.
But in Africa, more than any place, you see the gap so huge. And here you are, smart as you are, I knew you will do this to me. You brought it down to the family level. I never thought about that. You'll go to every family setting in Africa, you'll find that one person, maybe even, maximum two out of many with our extended family setting that is that successful, and their responsibility becomes even bigger. I spoke to someone here a couple of episodes ago, Gambian, Hannah, who mentioned being that change and starting with your family. And also in talking about that, we touched something that I heard. I never heard it coined that way. They call it the black, in this case, the African tax, right? Meaning, here you are successful, and now you need to help the family. You actually need to, because that's how our families are structured. It's not a choice. And that affects maybe how fast or how successful you should be growing, or how you should be scaling your success. So how do you see Africans, knowing that that's a challenge and still finding a way? You called it, empowering people just as an individual and having them grow. How else do you think us Africans can know that is a reality and still be able to, live through that and actually, bring more to the to the 1%? Like, how do you see that in your head?
So there are many solutions, and there's different angles you could look at it from. From a family perspective, what people tend to do is help bring others up at the same time. So you have a stronger family. There are
Right.
challenges with, sometimes we spoil them. I would say, you could say we spoil them, so they're very relaxed. They're like, he's, you know, if I don't go to school, if I don't do this, he'll still send money at the end of the month anyway. But there's also, on the side of, government and authorities,
Yes.
giving people the tools they need to succeed as well, because then even if the family don't help you, there's other opportunities within the society, country, community to help
Yes.
people help drive their businesses or their ideas. And I think role models, I think the word role
Ooh.
models
Ooh.
is very important, because to be very honest, in some societies, the role models will just be the ones who have tons of money and have have this big car and this big house. Nobody cares where the money's from, and
Yes.
the focus is more on how to get the money quickly than how to get something that's or sustainable and would also help your community as well. So one family could get rich at the expense of the rest of the community. Would they care? No.
Right. As long as they keep growing. Let's come back to this. I'll come back to role models. You mentioned that I had to note it down. Let's talk about opportunities. You mentioned it. So you've been around the continent. You're still going. You go there, like just knowing you as somebody that is business minded. You from when I met you over a decade ago, you had CEO next to your name. You've always been this thinker when it comes to just, whether it's you manifesting it. Actually, let's talk about that. That name CEO, what does it mean to you still? How did it come about? I just want to know how your brain thinks, and then we'll come to my question.
It was a manifestation, like you said. It was a
Manifestation.
manifestation. It was there for a while. It left. It's I'm past that now, but it was clearly to say this is the target.
Right. From very early on, and you being somebody that thinks like that, and going to you're driving, in and around Africa. What opportunities do you see that are not like untouched opportunities, the potential? What are you seeing in Africa? And I know you can cover it all, but what comes to mind when it comes to people that are outside of the continent, in the UK, in the US, all around the world? What opportunities are we missing as far as what the continent has for us that we are not tapping into as you travel the continent?
So to break this down, I think there's something that's very important, and I think when thinking of something to do wherever you are, it has to be, or it ideally something that you connect with for it to be successful. So
Got it?
it's the same back home. Like if you are a carpenter and you hear that there's a fishing business that's working well,
Yeah.
and you get into that fishing business, probably if you don't really understand fishing, if you really don't understand fisheries to the T, it's highly unlikely that it will be successful.
That's so good.
And this is something that you see commonly. People say, oh, there's this big uh, tire manufacturing business that's working. The first person who was successful, he's probably been a mechanic. He's probably built tires before. He's probably worked for one of those big tire companies. He knows the challenge. He
Yes.
found the solution to make
Right.
it better. And
Right.
that's why he will be successful. Anyone else who follows him will not be as successful because it's not the same dream. And everybody has a skill. It could be baking cakes, sewing, knitting, and whatever you do, there are millions of customers waiting for you. So when you're thinking of doing something back home, it's important that you are connected to that industry or sector. If you aren't, find out, do research. There's YouTube, there's books, so you can learn new skills or learn more about different business ideas, but just be sure that you know it in and out and be ready to be
Yes.
in the middle of everything with everybody. You can't start something and be away and expect it to be successful
To
because you're not
flourish.
there.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
there.
I don't know if people caught that. I have this, silly grin on my face because when you touched on that, it resonated right away. You said, there can be 1,000 opportunities out there. people can hear about them, especially with how social media is set up now, with how connected we are. You'll have family members and friends tell you what's working at home, what's making money. And if you don't think about it, if you don't listen to Usman Toure right now, and you jump on it because all you heard about it is how successful other people are getting on it, and you're not connected to it, it's not your passion, it's not what you care about, it's not what you know about, most importantly, you can jump on that and become a failure. Sorry to say, but that's just facts, right?
Yeah.
So what you're advising, what you're cautioning people to do is, there's endless opportunities, even in knitting, and even in just whatever it is you
Anything.
do, anything. There's customers waiting for your service, for your
Yeah.
product, for whatever
Yeah.
you have. Connect to what your passion is. Find out the opportunities in the thing that you're connected to, in the thing that you love, and know that that will work if you put it in the work. Usmani, I hope everybody caught that. Let's come to something important you mentioned. You said role model. You're the second person I've heard mention that, in that importantly here on this podcast. I spoke to a dear friend of mine, Roland from Congo, a place you know about a lot. He's from the Brazza area.
Okay. Okay.
So he mentioned in answering that question of the youth and opportunities and all the things that we can tap into, he brought up the same thing you just mentioned, role models. He said, as Africans, what will keep the youth there and take those opportunities is being able to see other people do it,
Yeah.
right? Role models, learning from other people, not a select few. We have that 1% that is so little, and sometimes we don't even, have that level of access in knowing them. It can be a family member, it can be somebody in your community, it can be somebody that made it just a little bit more than you did. Because if you reach that level, then you'll see a higher level on that ladder. He mentioned role models in that fashion, and I can't like I can't help but just talk about it this way. Tell me more about role models and how one can even take themselves as a role models whilst they're looking at somebody else, but know that they are at a level that somebody's trying to reach, and how they should hold themselves as far as
So
being role models.
I always like to use examples, and I'll use American Silicon Valley as an example.
Right.
It started by a few people, with this whole startup scene,
Mm-hmm.
saying we have an idea, we're gonna create a pitch deck, we're gonna pitch to people who would invest, and then
Mm-hmm.
oh, we have Facebook, it's worth billions of dollars. Oh, we have
Mm-hmm.
Google. Oh, we have Microsoft. And during this era, we've seen thousands more successful people because they saw the first, that first influx became the
Mm-hmm.
role models.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
everyone else was like, oh, we need to do this as well. I have an idea. I think access to water in this area is challenging. I'll create a piping system that would do XYZ, make it quicker, cheaper, da da da. This is the pitch deck, and they raise 100 million. I have a software that makes it easy for people to do podcasts,
Yes.
you know. So if that, and it's beginning to happen in Africa as well. You
Oh.
see countries like Senegal,
Okay.
Nigeria, Kenya, they have
Okay.
unicorns, billion-dollar companies.
Yes,
And
I've seen that.
now there are other people saying, I want to be like this guy. I want to be like Wave or
Yes.
Flutter Wave. And
Right.
there's
Right.
Pesa,
Right.
the
Yes.
mobile money app. Um, so this is the example. You need people who do it, are successful, they
Mm-hmm.
inspire other young people to do the same thing, and then we shift the focus from the, I don't like to use this word, but the improper practices or
Mm-hmm.
corruption,
Mm-hmm.
to actually making a lot of money legitimately and creating jobs, empowering people, being a role model for your society, for your community, for your family.
Wow.
And you
That is.
make
Mm-hmm.
more
Mm-hmm.
than that improper practice, that person doing improper practices.
Yes.
is a short window. For you, you have a lifetime achievement right there with a business that is purely flourishing.
You just touched on that. So this is Africa thriving, people, individuals, and their communities thriving in spite of those improper practices that live within us. So uh, uh, you live in the UK, or you're based in the UK. I can't even talk about you living in the UK. You're just all over. but you're based in the UK. I'm here in the US. These are countries that coined and deemed first world, right? And those improper practices, they resonate here. They live here. They're around us, But people thrive. People become successful. These huge countries just are making it. So when you mentioned that, that's what my mind went to. Those things can exist, and hopefully we improve, we get better, but cannot be an excuse. We cannot say, Africa, or where I come from is corrupt. We can
No.
find ways to actually, make it happen, whether starting with that individual or and people around you, which all the way in the beginning of this podcast, you said 1 + 1 + 1 a million times. That's already growth. Usmani, I knew you were going to do this to me. You bring in these things that I actually had a structure as far as where I wanted to go with this. Thank you for bringing me here. I love our continent, maybe not as much as you do because you're making all of this happen. But when I think about Africa, hence this conversation, I feel like the more we have this conversation, the more we talk and grab ideas from bright minds like you, the more we'll get people involved. What would you say to somebody who is away from the continent and thinking about it as everything, quote unquote, because I've heard this, everything that I've attempted to do back home, I kept hitting these walls of, people taking advantage of me, and, people being corrupt, and having to, if you have $10,000 or pounds to like build a business, half of it will go to paying people. And look, I've heard this so many times. What would you say to somebody like that if they were sitting next to you and they're discouraged and they're not involved anymore because they feel like systems are not in place for them to succeed?
Okay, good question. So this is a very good question, and I think there's no one correct answer, but here
Right.
is what I think. Now, I'll use examples again.
Yes.
The percentage, when you look at the people who start businesses back home, the percentage of people who actually go back and are there and involved, the percentage of people successful, you'd see more of them. The number of people who go back,
Yes.
most of them will be successful. So that's one thing. The percentage of those who are not there trying to do it, out of those ones, a high percentage will not be successful. So just being involved is one key thing. You have to be there. You have to be fully involved. Secondly, have you done your homework? Do you know about this? Is it more of like someone just came to you and said, I can buy 10 fish and sell them for 5 times the price?
Yes.
Do you really know
have your
how? Do
profit
you
there?
really understand the business model? Do you have a business plan? Do you know, if you were to open a shop, do you know that for the first 6 months, your investment should cover salaries, bills, taxes, that you shouldn't be using the money you've just earned to go back, you can't just start eating the profit. You need to have a proper, so do your homework, fully understand, because you could even have the knowledge. You could
Yes.
be a very good carpenter,
Yes.
but you need to know what your charges would be, how much you'd sell each unit, how many months of runway you'd need.
Yes.
You need a warehouse, the
Yes.
rent for that,
Yes.
who your team would be at first in the first phase. So you
Yes.
need to really have a plan. And there are so many people who have been successful as well, but they did their homework. So be involved. If you're not an expert, find an expert and pay him or her a lot of money to run it for you. But you have to be fully involved and you have to do your homework. Don't just throw your money into something expecting it to work when you don't really understand how the money will be made.
Here's why this yet another silly grin. You mentioned things that here I spoke to Sharif from Nigeria here, and I spoke to Nana from Ghana, who mentioned something again, similar to what you just said. What they told me was, and these are both people that are doing something in Africa, and whether they've learned or whether it's education through trial, they've seen that a lot of us over here will hear about an opportunity or we want to do something, and we end up having somebody helping us at home because you need somebody on the ground if you're not there, right? If you're going to be the source here as far as financing and being the capital, you're working here, you're trying to make money here. So if you're trying to make it happen, first of all, you just mentioned it, the involvement should go beyond just text messages. You're sitting here texting and making WhatsApp calls. It should be beyond that. So if you're not there, find that person. But if you find that person, and this is where they think, and you're mentioning it right now, we mess up a lot, where you're looking for somebody to help you back home, and you drop them a coin here and there to say, hey, thank you. But have you done this for me? Have you done that for me? You're a project manager. Building a house, right? What is involved in building a house is just too many things, to structure and align and manage and watch and monitor, right? We have people doing that for us back home whilst we're sitting here, and we expect them to do everything right, and it's not a paid job. So you're saying choose that person, that expert, pay them handsomely, as in pay them right, right? You don't have to overpay them if you haven't do it, but pay them right so that they won't tap into those funds you're sending because they need to survive. When I heard them say that, I knew exactly, what I mean? I knew a lot of people that have been burnt like that because they didn't do it right. Thank you for mentioning that again, and I hope people caught that. Okay, Usman, I can't believe we're halfway through already. This is the time we wooz her over here at STEM to Roots. Take a break, and do our little, tell me something you think I don't know. Because here we love knowledge. Usman, you know so much. Tell me anything you think I don't know. If I know it, I'll tell you, okay, please try again. But if I don't, I'll admit to it. Do you have something for me?
The first thing that comes to mind is geography question. It's very weird.
Okay.
Uh, do you know